Hey there, everyone. Dave Keller here with Market Misbehavior. Today we're going to talk about some post-earnings behavior from individual stocks. We're going to use the EPS platform to dig into 7 particular charts, 7 individual names, sort of what their journey has been coming through this Q1 earnings season as we wrap that up this week. Some of the earnings momentum and price momentum that starts to be in alignment for some of these charts, and for some of them demonstrating strong earnings, but the price is not there yet. We'll talk about what we might need to see to confirm that price action. All along the way, we'll be talking about this dual sort of mandate of looking for strong price trend and looking for strong earnings momentum. We're going to start off talking about just the macro conditions. Now, undeniably, the trend in the major U.S. averages has been higher, and we can see that here with the S&P, the NASDAQ, the diamonds, the Dow, and the Russell 2000, all in a confirmed upward trend. Here's the kicker, though, and there's some choppiness this week as we're getting a lot of headlines out of the Middle East, but come down a little bit, and we're going to look at the 11 S&P sectors, and this is just a 2-month chart, a 60-day chart, just to show us how these trends have evolved over time. So we're going back to the middle of March. Instead of price, I'm going to look at a ratio, which now shows me the relative performance of each of these sector ETFs versus the S&P 500. Now, I ask you to glance quickly through these 11 sectors. How many of them are those relative lines going up, meaning it's actually outperformed the S&P over the last 2 months? Have you found it yet? There's only one. Technology, the XLK, is literally the only one out of the 11 S&P sectors that has legitimately outperformed the S&P over the last 2 months. The other ones are in varying degrees of failure to outperform. Something like industrials, maybe utilities did quite well in the month of March, but once April started and now into early May, everything but tech is underperforming. So this advance, during this advance, while there are select stocks in other sectors, and we'll try to highlight some of those, of course, today, it's worth noting that a sector allocation strategy probably struggling right about now, unless your sector strategy is only tech, in which case you're probably doing pretty well and managing to outperform the S&P. It's even worse here. We're going to look at a zoom in here, and on EPS Momentum, you have the ability to sort of quickly pick a starting point. So we're going to start at the end of Q1. So starting the clock on March 31st, look to the right column, and you can see that technology is up 14%. From March 31st, energy down 21%. But after technology up 14%, you have to go all the way down to like consumer discretionary, real estate down 2, 3, 4% over that period. So it literally has been a market of one sector. It's been tech and then everything else. That's where we're seeing the strongest trends. Certainly what we learned from the last couple of weeks is that those strong trends, for the most part, appear to be supported by some pretty decent earnings, both top-line revenues and bottom-line earnings, and that should be pretty encouraging. But let's talk about some individual stocks. You're probably pretty comfortable with the broad market environment. What I did on EPS Momentum is I'm going here to the scanners section, actually created my own desktop here, and I'm going down and actually picking earnings momentum as a predefined scan. They've got some predefined scans, and if you're not familiar with earnings momentum, it uses what they call the EM score to assess the strength of the company's financials. It's 4 kind of main components: earnings, bottom line earnings, top line sales, profit margins, and free cash flow. And they have a proprietary combination. The higher the number, the better it is. So I'm basically looking at liquid U.S. stocks showing a strong earnings momentum score. And I've just hand selected some of these that I think provide great examples, but I'd encourage you to dig into the platform further. And you can find more info, by the way, at marketmisbehavior.com/EPS. They'll give you a great deal on checking out a new account if you're so motivated. We're going to start with Alphabet. I like to start with kind of a plain vanilla, really strong case so we can just see how the charts sort of play out, because we're going to look at 7 stocks altogether, starting with Alphabet. There's the chart on the right, but here is what they call the advanced quote. And I love this, particularly this middle section, where it has a very quick gut check on the earnings side and the trend side, right? Earnings and price. On the earnings side, they've got some quantitative models that measure strength in what they call the earnings momentum score, also particularly looking at EPS, earnings per share, and then sales, and just getting a sense of the strength there in those different metrics. And the positive numbers here in the last 2 metrics are better. On the right side, it's all of their different models that measure trend. I just start with the basic trend heading, but you'll see as we go on, the relative market ranking, which is sort of their version of relative strength, is also an important one that I like to pay attention to. Generally speaking, we want to own stocks that are outperforming the benchmark. So when both sides of this are green, I know we have strong earnings potential, strong trend performance, and those are usually a pretty good list of stocks to work with. Not all of them are going to be positive on both, and I'll talk through some of those as we go. The chart of Alphabet, I think, is a good example because we can see, as of their last earnings report, which was here last week, we can see post-earnings, as you probably saw, we had that big gap higher. Look at the bottom one. You'll see the big green letter P. This is the daily volume rating. Basically, when you have a big move on strong volume, that's called a bullish power day or a positive power day. Basically, big move, big volume is the way that I like to think of it. During a consistent uptrend, during a long-term uptrend, a persistent uptrend, we want to see power days all along the way if possible. At major turning points, you'll see like at the March low into the beginning of April, we saw some negative power days, right? Big down moves on heavy downward volume. Then all of a sudden we started to reverse, and that is often one of the great early warning signs I've seen about a potential reversal, right? Distribution, big negative power days, negative trend, then all of a sudden you start to see some positive power days. Even though a lot of the other parts of the trend, and if you look at the bottom, you can see these red bars. These are the different parts of the trend momentum. Some of the things that are shown here on that other little snapshot. You can see not all of them are bullish, right? About half of them are bearish here at the low, and that makes sense, right? Because the trend has generally been negative. So I found those bullish power days were often a good early warning system, but then it's all about the sustainability. It's all about the trend persisting, right? Continued improvement. And I would say this latest earnings with the gap and then the run higher with the positive power days there right around earnings provides kind of a sweet combination of strong price, strong earnings trend. That's a chart of Alphabet, and there are other charts, there are a lot of charts obviously that look kind of like this, but it's not all in technology, right? I mean, if you're looking at some of the semiconductor names, probably going to look pretty similar. This is a company in the industrial sector named Comfort Systems, which is ticker FIX. I love that ticker. This is in a subgroup called Business Support Services, kind of a random group of different kind of names in the industrial sector. We can see generally, of course, on the left, strong earnings, strong trend. What I like about this profile is that generally the trend remains pretty consistent, right? We're just seeing this nice grind higher of higher highs and higher lows. So it's important to note that if you're looking for strong uptrends, we can look outside of technology, and that's where scanning on something like timing momentum can help you identify charts like this that are also showing quite a bit of strength. I actually usually start with an earnings momentum screen and then just go through the charts because I love looking at charts one by one and just seeing what stands out to me. Comfort Systems stood out because when I saw the chart, I immediately thought technology, and then I looked at the ticker and I think, ooh, that's actually not a tech name. It's actually in the industrial sector. So overall, right, earnings were here in kind of mid-April. We can see this little annotation on the chart shows you their most recent earnings, and post-earnings, we saw a bit of choppiness and then a kind of resumption of the uptrend. I like that power day, making a new 52-week high, kind of continuing this uptrend a little bit further. Bit of distribution today. That's after gapping higher on Tuesday's session. Still okay in terms of the medium-term and long-term trend, of course, but overall something to watch. And what I would say is on a chart like this and with Alphabet and others, stocks that are in these good long-term uptrends, what we then want to do is look for warning signs. So I would say big negative power days, right? Like a big down day on heavier than average volume. That can be a great warning sign that, okay, there's at least some initial distribution happening as the stocks, currently in an uptrend, but maybe we're seeing some signs that may be near some sort of end. So important to keep an eye on that as well. But for now, I would say both Alphabet, FICO, and other names with this particular combination, strong trends generally getting stronger. The second set of names that I found with the scan here are ones that are a little more actionable, right? The charts of Alphabet and FICO have been in an uptrend for quite some time. So I think it's important to kind of find names that are a little earlier on in the breakout. I thought this one, Modine Manufacturing, ticker MOD. This is in the consumer discretionary sector. It's a an auto parts company. But I like the fact that we're just recently breaking out, right? So you could probably call this a bit of a bull flag pattern, right? We saw the rotation higher here in March and April coming off of that low in early March. We then see after this run higher, this parallel decline of lower highs and lower lows. And then look at how we broke out of that pattern to the upside. Look at these positive power days that happened after we resolved that pattern to the upside. That's actually a pretty important part of the technical toolkit that I think often gets overlooked. Honestly, by me, if you follow my work, I rarely talk about volume. But if you go back to the classic literature on price patterns, right, the Edwards and McGee book called The Bible of Technical Analysis by some, they talk about the importance on any of these patterns, particular volume characteristics. And particularly when you have something like a bull flag pattern, a continuation pattern like this, when you finally break out to new highs, you want to see that move supported by stronger volume, because that implies it's not just a blow off top, but it's more of a broader accumulation. So bigger moves on bigger volume tend to be more meaningful and tend to imply a more sustainable uptrend. So again, it checks all the boxes in terms of the earnings and the trend. I would say on the tactical time frame, I like the fact that we've broken out of this to the upside. So for now, kind of a nice continuation pattern after that break higher. Next ticker would be Nucor, ticker NUE. You're probably familiar with this. It's one of the big steel companies and one of the biggest listings in the in the materials sector. So I'm trying to kind of pick some different sectors. I think this is an important one because it's kind of an interesting uptrend. I think why this is an important one, just to show the number of power days that we've observed here, right? Look, since that low in mid-March, look at all of the power days that we observed. And it started out back here in early April when we're just trying to get off those lows. You see these big moves on heavier than average volume. Then we saw more and more kind of in late April, and now into early May, we're seeing further power days. Actually reported earnings on April 27th, positive result afterwards. The earnings score pretty well. The trend score, as you can see, this is the first one we've looked at where the trend side is a little more negative. That's because some of the indicators are slowing down a little bit, particularly the ones measuring relative strength. And so there's been a bit of a lightening up. By the way, if you know your candle patterns, this one, and we'll see what happens because the market's still open, but this one looks like what we call an evening star candle pattern. We have a big up day, kind of a little day here, and then a big down day. So it's a 3-candle pattern, an up day, kind of a smaller consolidation, and then big down day. That 3-bar pattern usually implies short-term weakness. So I thought it was important to highlight something like Nucor with generally a strong upward trend. We've seen all the signs of positive accumulation along the way. Arguably, many charts like this are overdue for some sort of pullback. We're seeing a candle pattern implying that may be kind of happening pretty soon. So the question is, how far do we pull back? Do we pull back to a key level of support? After we pull back, do we see further signs of accumulation? So if we do get a pullback here, I want to make sure that the pullback is a short-term pullback and that there's signs of accumulation, right? And I would love to see some of these trend scores turn back positive, maybe ideally see some more positive power days as we see some signs of accumulation. So this one's maybe a wait-and-see chart given the candle patterns that we're seeing today. However, I think it could mean a short-term pullback within a long-term kind of strong uptrend. Those are often some of the best charts that I've been able to identify. We're going to come back to EPS Momentum in a moment. I've got 3 more charts to highlight. I think ones that are a little more actionable and maybe right at some key points that I wanted to highlight for you. As you can tell, we're using the platform called EPS Momentum. They've become great partners to Market Misbehavior. Appreciate their support very much. You can find more info about their fantastic platform at marketmisbehavior.com/EPS. And as we're trying to demonstrate, I found as a stock picking tool, it's one of the best I've seen at really focusing on 2 main metrics that have tended to lead to great winners going forward. Number 1, strong earnings, particularly strong earnings potential, according to analysts and guidance. And number 2, strong trend, right? So strong performers with strong earnings. And this platform does very, very well at trying to align those 2 key metrics, makes it very easy to find stocks that check both of those boxes and some that may be less ideal on one or the other, all which hopefully gives you the opportunity to build a pretty successful portfolio focusing on trend and earnings. Again, you can find more info at marketmisbehavior.com/EPS. All right, three more charts I wanted to share with you guys. The next one's FICO, and this is, it's really a fintech company, right? I mean, it's technically bucketed in the technology sector, but you could arguably bucket in the financial sector as well. This one actually feels a little early to me, which is why I thought it'd be interesting to look at. So if you look, the stock's actually been in a primary downtrend for quite some time, right? We saw a pattern of lower lows and lower highs all through the end of the first quarter. But if you look at the last couple months, maybe the last 6 to 8 weeks, we're starting to consolidate a little bit. And if you look here in the little cheat sheet, right, the advanced quote as they call it, the trend is called consolidating. So it's no longer a downtrend, it's kind of a consolidating. And I love to find consolidating names where the earnings are strong and the expectations are improving, because those can often be really interesting names just maybe starting to emerge. And while the trend is not quite there yet, we might be very, very close here to starting to reverse that trend. So I would love to see a break to a new swing high. I would love to see some stronger volume on a breakout. So we look for a green power day or two here, demonstrating some accumulation off of the lows. But I thought this is an interesting one to highlight, where the earnings are actually pretty constructive coming out of their report. We're now in a consolidating tape, which is more encouraging. Do we start to see improvement here? This is one of those where I'd probably set a price alert and look for a breakout to be validated again, ideally on stronger volumes. I think FICO might be an interesting kind of earlier name. If you're more of a bottom fisher, that might seem a little more interesting to you. I'm often looking for stocks more in strong uptrends. Hasbro's another one, and this one's been kind of a choppy month or two here, coming off of their low at the beginning of April. We can see some a big negative power day in late April, kind of retesting the previous low, but almost looks a bit like a double bottom pattern. And now we're starting to round higher a little bit. We gapped higher on Wednesday's session, and so it sort of caught my eye there. We're kind of just at the point where we're potentially making a new swing high, and I thought that would be an important one to highlight. Similar to what we mentioned with FICO, I think this is one that's been more kind of choppy sideways. As we can see, the trend is more consolidating. These are names that for me feel not quite ready, but I think it's important to have some of these maybe on a watch list and just look for the ones that give you that validation, right? All these names that are more consolidating, which are the ones that show signs of new accumulation? Break to a new swing high, positive power day, maybe demonstrating improving price action and improving momentum. Those are two things that I would be looking for on ticker HAS. Last one would be FIGS. This is another consumer discretionary name, also in the consolidating trend. So this is one where the earnings score pretty well, but the trend has been sideways. This one actually gapped higher on earnings. The earnings were back here at the end of February. And if you look, we had this nice gap higher on earnings. We actually traded higher for about a week. That gap higher took us above the previous swing high around 1250, really accelerated the uptrend, but it stalled out here in the upper teens. From there, it's kind of settled into a range, and right now it's pretty much mid-range. We're at median of where we've been, right around $15 a share. This is kind of where the stock has been sitting through March and April, and now settling into May. Again, this is one of those names that I love to find where the earnings are pretty positive. I'm seeing positive trend and positive expectations on the earnings side. The price action has not really demonstrated real accumulation yet. So similar to what we saw with FICO and with HAS, these are ones I feel like you want to probably be patient. I would be patient with the chart like this, looking for more signs of accumulation. So it's fun to find charts like Alphabet and Fix and others that we highlighted earlier, kind of in these nice, consistent uptrend phases, and those charts are out there. But in terms of actionable ideas, finding some of these ones that maybe don't score as well on the timing side, but looking for and waiting for that moment when the trend really starts to emerge, that's where we can find encouraging breakouts on encouraging volume. And again, if they're supported by strong earnings and strong earnings expectations, that's where long-term winners can often be identified. What do you think about these 7 stocks that I highlighted? Any that I did not include that you'd like me to take a look at? Make sure you drop a comment below and let me know. Thanks again to EPS Momentum for supporting Market Misbehavior, and thanks for watching today. Hope you guys all enjoyed this discussion of price, earnings, and idea generation. For Market Misbehavior, I'm Dave Keller, reminding you it's always a good time to own good charts. Take care, folks.